Hey, hello all, and welcome to another Surfcoast Longboarders interview. We've got Brett Stammers from Rare T-shirts, and we've got Angela King from South Coast Longboards, Ted and Glenn, our main people who look after all the networks and Texas and all of that. And what we'll do some interviews with you guys and ask some questions, and we'll have a bit of a chat too. But I'll hand you over to Glenn now and Ted to ask some questions as we go along. Thanks,
Glenn. Bud. All right, thank you, Bud. Okay, so here we are back again. Well, we've managed to almost get through this COVID madness. So I think this is, Ted, you might know, I don't know how many interviews we've done. We've done at least 6, perhaps.
I think 6. They've all been basically getting worse and worse. Really, the last one was about the most terrible one.
Forget any professionalism.
I think that needs to be edited.
And I'm sure we've got a huge following out there. This is a bit of a special one. We thought we would involve some of our sponsors of the club and people who have been sponsoring us, looked after us over a few years now. So we've got Ange and Brett. Ange from South Coast Surfboards, of course, and Brett from Rare Surf Tees. So actually, I'm really looking forward to another garage sale, Brett. I'm running out of T-shirts. So we want to invite them along, and because we really do appreciate any sponsorship that the club gets, and quality goods, guys. Fantastic. So I'm really interested. I might start with you, Brett. I'd just like to know what your association has been with the club over the years, how you got involved, and over to you.
Well, mate, I've only been. Look, it's crazy about the sponsorship. I started, and Bud rang me, and I had a chat about sponsorship at the start of this year, and jumped at the chance to give something back to the club, and bang, we got smacked. And I think Bud's still sitting on my sponsorship, still to start that up, and I've promised more for the future. I was a member a couple of years ago, and I think I've not really been a competitive surfer, and I've always been a free surfer at my little home break, which can remain anonymous. It's called Boobs. And I've been surfing.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. Don't know where that is.
And it's a funny place because we surf it every time it's on, and there's 40 different blokes out or 20 different blokes. It's not like Winky Pop or Bells or Southside, same guys. I still only know 3 to maybe a handful of guys out there after surfing it for 35, 40 years. And so the club hasn't seen a lot of me because that's the only place I go. But I'm an old Torquay boy, and I've loved the club, and I haven't been super competitive in nature. I had a double knee replacement last year, and that really knocked me around. And I know Bud's been going through his health problems, and when you get to our age, Bud, we're still young, but our bodies are saying that we're a bit older. And but my involvement with the club doesn't go back that far, but I want to help where I can.
Can you say just something quickly about the kind of emblems and different organisations that are on your T-shirts, and whether they've got any association with longboards?
Oh yeah, well they certainly have. I actually just got my Pacific Longboarder magazine in the mail, and I'm a good friend of Johnny Brazen, and I looked at our beautiful ad that we just did, and our ad shows Kim Thompson in the Shaping Bay way back in the 70s. It's a full page ad. If you see the ad, you'll understand where we come from. And now we're doing Keith Paul's T-shirts. We're doing Mike Davis, Nat Young, Skip, Gary Elkington, Nirvana, Burn Surfboard, Pat Morgan, Clem Bell. And over the years, I started about 9 years ago, and it's been a struggle because I believe that the industry had forgotten all about the shapers. And, we've got Rip Curl, Billabong, Quicksilver, but the people who started the whole industry were the shapers. And if you look at it today, not many people still talk about the shapers. If you're lucky enough to own a Clemmy or a Nat Young or a Pat Morgan, the people who have them know what they mean to them, you know.
Yeah.
And if that's, it's sort of like more shortboard that a lot of the logos we do are maybe 70s,
Oh, okay.
late 60s, but we do Graham King. Kingy is nearly 85 now, 84. We do Scotty Dillon's T-shirts. I met Scott about 10 years ago and called in to see him, and he loved my idea. He said I was going to make $1 million. Well, he was wrong. But, you know,
You
like
should be making $1 million because they're
Yes.
priceless, all of them.
yeah, we should have been jumped on years ago to expand the whole project, but, you know, we still tick along.
Yeah.
I love doing the old art
Yeah.
off the surfboards. Like your logo at South Coast is brilliant. You know, like one day in 20 years'
Oh,
time,
thank you.
someone will put that on a vintage T-shirt. You know,
Oh,
it's-
yeah, that'd be cool. Make me feel really old and cheers.
but brands
Yeah,
today,
but it is, I think it's awesome.
yeah.
So
And
awesome.
we literally knocked on the door of all these old fellas 10 years ago when they were probably still a lot of them coherent, because today a lot of them, you know, their brains are a little bit rattled. They don't like dealing with the mainstream guys who want contracts. They want to shake a hand like the old days
Yeah.
and learn.
Yeah.
You know, and I found that I was sending contracts out to these guys 10 years ago, and no one would knock on no one would talk to me. And then I literally jumped in the car and drove and met them and did a handshake. There's no such thing as a contract with any of them.
Yeah.
You know, but unfortunately, a couple of them have passed away. Len Dibben, you might know Len Dibben from WA, and a lot of people don't know him, but he shaped more boards in WA than he'd be like a Pat Morgan.
Yeah.
And he's now 84.
Yeah.
And Len rings me once a week with his health problems, but he still wants to talk about surfboard design and you know, and T-shirts.
Great.
So anyway.
Thanks for that. Now, I know, Ange, you're in to making surfboards too, and you operate a company, but I wanted to go back in history and find out a little bit about where you started in surfing, like how you started and what you were doing, you know, and where it all sort of started with you.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was born in Byron Bay with my family up there. That's where I grew up. And basically, you know, my dad surfed. My mum was, you know, loving being in the water. She was on like surf mats and things like that. And I kind of had no choice, more or less. Like not forced, but I was just there every day. Every day we're at the beach and every day we surf. So, you know, like I had early memories of being on the front of my dad's board and things like that. And I think it was kind of around, I don't know, there was a lot of different boards that I rode, you know, surf clubs I was in. And I think for longboarding particularly was when I was probably, I don't know, 13 that I got heavily into it. My dad always had in Byron, and I guess I grew up because he's just such an avid surfer and had many old boards and different boards and everything. He always had a longboard in his quiver, a couple. And my first longboard I ever rode was Warren Cornish. And it was like this old kind of mid-length, you know, rainbow looking thing that I thought was amazing. Being a 13-year-old girl, I was like, I just want to surf that all the time. And Dad was like, yeah, sure, as long as you stay in the water, get on a longboard, have fun, whatever. So I was lucky enough from that aspect. A career in longboarding sprouted really quickly. Being in Byron Bay, macro surfing, like, you know, I had no idea. I was just surfing, and like I'd see people like Bob and at surf events and things like that, I'd see people like Claw and all those type of guys, like just having fun. And so yeah, how it all kind of started, I had this real, I guess now I can look back as a moment of like, oh, like at the time I was like, oh yeah, whatever, going with it. I was surfing Noosa, and basically my dad was watching me. It was the first like big longboard event I went into. Yep. And my dad was watching me at Tea Tree, and then he started like waving me in frantically, and I'd only been out there for, I don't know, probably half an hour, and I thought, what's going on? Like, it was crowded, it was the Noosa Festival, and it was the first time I'd done it. And he came in, and then there was this old guy with him who I'd kind of seen around Byron before, and he introduced himself as Bob McTavish, and he said that he'd seen me around the water for a very long time, noticed I'd started getting into longboarding, and he just said to me, "Would you like to ride for us?" And I was just like, okay, yeah, cool. And he goes, "Cool. All right. So tomorrow we're having a team photo shoot. There'll be these longboards there and all this stuff. Would love you to come along." And yeah, it just kind of sprouted from there, the longboard aspect.
Fantastic. So that was the starting in Byron was just on your dad's surfboards and anything you could find.
Yes, absolutely. Look, actually, there was a little moment in between that. It was anything I could find, anything I could surf. Obviously, everyone was surfing shortboards and things, so I would gravitate towards that because that's what everyone, all like peers and things that were surfing. And then, you know, as you get that self-awareness of yourself, I was like, no, I want to keep surfing all these random different boards that Dad had, and that was available.
Fantastic. Can I just take this? This could be Barry. I'm going to hand back to Glenn.
And I just wanted to ask you, I understand that you've picked up a role with Surfing Victoria. Can you tell us a little? Are you okay to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So this is kind of really exciting. So what's happened is that, you know, it's a funny. I know I've had all these experiences through the surf industry. And, you know, I rode for Rip Curl and I did modelling and I did comps and all these events. So basically, Surfing Victoria approached me to be on a board with a number of very other talented women in different aspects in women's sporting. So not necessarily surfing. It was pretty much a massive conversation for, I think it was over a couple of months. We would meet up over Zoom. At first it was in person and then obviously COVID happened. So it was over Zoom. And it was just about establishing, you know, making the water and events and the environment comfortable for women. Surfing Victoria itself recognising that a lot more women were taking it up, but at the same time, a lot more young teens kind of drop off. So they want to create this safe zone and influential, you know, inspiring kind of thing that no matter what age, girls will stay in and women will join. And basically a role was discovered in the process of doing that. And so what it is they're going to be calling it Surf Her Way. And we're going to be basically doing surf days at all different levels. We'll be doing I'll be coaching at a certain level as well. And then there'll be other times that there'll be beginners. We've got a podcast, funny enough, we've just launched, and we're going to have, when all the COVID normal kind of, you know, settles down a bit, we're going to have more like one-on-one things. You know, people like Gail Cooper come along, have surf sessions. So it's just kind of about, I don't know, making an environment that girls are comfortable in, you know, and giving that awareness and just getting girls active and keeping them motivated in the sport.
It sounds fantastic, Ange. Can I just ask you, just going back a step, what got you down to Victoria? Going from Byron? What got you back? What got you into Victoria? Living in Byron Bay, down to Victoria.
It's a funny one. Well, it's a funny one. It's like this round robin of surfing. What my life is, I've been really lucky. So I've had always these really cool opportunities on the way that just kind of popped up before social media was about. You just be out and about doing things, meet people, you know, that type of thing. So I met Ian. And yeah, he was long distance, and I'd been down here before for Rip Curl a number of times, and truthfully, I absolutely loved the place. I loved the cliffs. I loved the power of the ocean, like the difference of Northern New South Wales, Byron, you know, it's real soft and fluffy, I'd kind of say to those waves. So I'd always kind of gone, oh, wow, like actually I had a really funny story. The first time I ever came down here, I had no idea about booties except for going overseas, Maldives and things like that. And I put winter booties on over the top of my wetsuit. And no one told me. We're doing a Rip Curl shoot and everyone's like, oh, and they're all kind of having a laugh at me. And I'm like, the longboard girl going out at Bells. And it filled up with water and I was freezing. And they all had a chuckle. They're like, Ange, like, you can really tell you've never been in cold water ever. And I was like, no, never. I've got
a better one.
What's that?
Put your wetsuit on the wrong, reversed around.
Yeah, I'm lucky. Have
you done that?
I'm lucky I had that experience.
A couple of times.
Okay, right. I'm just going to ask Brett, what got you down to Torquay?
you probably know, Bud, because I met you at the ripe old age of about 14 or 15.
Yeah.
I did my bronze medallion at the Torquay Lifesaving Club, and that was way back in, I don't know, the early 70s. And I got quickly thrown out of that club after we had a party in there. We got the key, remember? And you probably heard about the party. And I got booted out, never to return. And we used to camp under the little kiosk there. We used to hitchhike down from Footscray Station. There was a couple of famous guys. Steve Ryan. Do you know Steve?
Yeah, rings a bell.
Steve's the great photographer. Batesy, has anyone ever heard of John Bates Whitwell? Batesy, he's a down south surfer. He's been living over in Cactus for about 25 years, and he's a big surfer. And the three of us used to hitchhike down together on Fridays till about Monday. And we'd always go AWOL on Mondays, getting back to school, and we were only like 14 or 15. And Torquay Point was my first break that I surfed. And I remember I met you at the club. How old were you? Probably 16 or 17, maybe.
For me, oh no, I think I might have been 14 or 15 at the time. But yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was
So cool.
But Steve Ryan doesn't ring a bell. I've got a couple of his photos that you mentioned. It just came back to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Steve's
great photographer.
Great photographer. But yeah, no, I went back to Melbourne and owned a couple of surf shops in Melbourne for 20 years. We built up a couple of big shops in Melbourne, and I got out about 10 or 12 years ago now. And I've just been
in Williamstown, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in Williamstown. We had a big couple of shops in there, and trade was fantastic. You know, surf shops were booming. You wouldn't want to own a surf shop today, but back in those days, we were working 7 days a week, and I wasn't getting a lot of waves, but in the last 12 years, I've really made up for it.
Can we ask Ange just about surf shops at the moment? I mean, I know that you're involved in a surf shop down here. How is it going? Brett thinks it's not going so well. I'm going to answer this phone call while you talk.
I'm talking big surf shops, you know, not
it's busier than ever for us. It's the busiest. Like, obviously, I've only been involved with South Coast for 15 years now, and it's busier than ever. And Ian reckons, like, it's when he first opened up, he reckons like the 2000s was like the early, you know, with all the, you know, tri-fin longboarding and things like that. That was kind of one of his busiest stages. And then it kind of went up and down, as everything does. And he used to supply to Japan, so that kept him busy. But now he's never seen anything like it himself. He hasn't been in the industry for a long time, but, you know, in the 20 years plus whatever he has, he's just blown away. Like, he can't keep up almost. So it's a really lucky thing. We're actually getting, because he speaks a lot of guys up north as well. In Sydney, he gets his boards off blanks off Bennett's. And yeah, Dion, sorry, but they were saying for them as well, like, apparently Barry was, you know, he's retired and he's around hassling everyone all the time because he's so excited, because it's just such a massive buzz. And it's one of the busiest there's ever been as well. So I think it's kind of rad. It's kind of like everyone's looking back currently because they either, I don't know, there's many theories, but because they can't go overseas or whatever it is, are looking back into the Australian market a lot more. And there's a lot of small manufacturers that are really benefiting from it, which is really awesome. So we're kind of pinching ourselves at the moment. It's really cool.
And you've got some fantastic ambassadors writing for you, some very big names up north, yourself, obviously, and I know you've got some down here, Sam Sonderman and others. Just noticing over the last few years how many women are surfing now, which I think is just awesome. In fact, I paddled out on, I can't remember what day it was, a few days ago, and I was the only male out there. There must have been 12 females, and you know, Emma too, just laughing, say yes around. I said, but this is so good. It's such a nice way of surfing, you know. You haven't got people just, you know, burning everywhere. And now longboards obviously seem to be the thing for so many women surfing. Do you think this is part of a reason that South Coast also has been so prolific in producing boards, because there are so many more women now surfing?
I think so, yeah. And I think Yeah, you know what? I think that's a major part. And it was funny because when when I really put my feet in and was like, okay, Chiz, we're going to do all this stuff. And he was like, oh, I've done it all before, and it kind of works. And he had, he had team riders, he had all that. He downsized because of the market and how it was, and was being practical and just making the boards. And I was just like, no, I believe we should just give it a big push, and promote and get ambassadors on board and do all that. I think with me working with him, I just knew the ins and outs from my own experiences, and I just knew that it could be a really good idea to give it a go. So from that, we are now definitely getting a kickback for sure. It's amazing. The amount of girls, and social media has played a massive part. It's huge. That was another thing we had to kind of learn. And I think that's really helped us through COVID as well, because we have that, it's been busier than ever through that angle. And girls, love my kind of view of the whole thing is that I think a lot of girls get intimidated. They're very aware, they're very switched on in all aspects, always observing a lot of things. Because I notice this is my daughter, like my son, for example, he'll go big and he'll be like, oh yeah, I'm just catching waves, but she'll be like, oh my gosh, there's a massive set coming. Oh my gosh, there's this. And she's thinking. And so I think they get intimidated really easy in the lineup, and longboarding is a nice chilled approach and introduction to surfing. So a lot of women you have coming in, like they've always wanted to surf, but they thought shortboarding was it, because it's been a massive thing in the market, with the WSL and things like that. So yeah, I believe there's a number of factors, and I think a lot of women get into it because it's a nice, relaxing way and approach in the water. You can surf smaller surf, and then you can push yourself up if you want, as opposed to having to go out in something bigger and go from there.
Would you say, Ange, that the Surfcoast Longboarders Fly Women on Water has helped that sort of promote the...
100%. That's been massive.
Yeah. And all the other crew.
Definitely.
So,
absolutely.
Continue to, support it and back it and that. So it's great.
I might just add, Ange, that I've been riding one of those. In fact, I was out on one of Ben's old boards today, who's Scotty Taylor owns it now, and I don't want to give it back because I'm having so much fun. And I never thought I'd see myself on a, like a 50-50 single fin log. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
Ange, can I ask you a question?
That's so cool.
Can I ask you a question? You're saying social media is big for you now, in terms of getting it out there. Have you been hamstrung by Instagram and Facebook limiting your reach? Because that's what we're finding, that social media was great early on, but now they just want money from you all the time now. Every time we post, they limit what we're doing. We'll do a beautiful post, 20 people like it. In the old days, 100 and 200 liked it. Now they just want money. So the biggest problem with brands today is getting their brand out there, but it's got to be done at some expense where they want money. The underground way.
It's so frustrating. I totally agree. It's so frustrating. So we were, it's funny because when we got on social media, we were even behind the 8 ball, as say. There was other brands, people I know that I grew up with, that were well on top of it, and they've become internationally renowned shapers. Like they're in, like not even in their 30s yet. It's because they were on social media. So when we got on there, it comes to the followers, you can see all that. We were behind the 8 ball, and I was like, oh my gosh, but we were just lucky to get in there before it has now turned the way that it is. Absolutely. Like I can't imagine now starting it up. It'd be harder because like you said, they limited it. They've, before these restrictions and all these adjustments were made, we were lucky to just get in before all that. And I think that worked in our benefit for sure. Definitely. Made it easier to establish, the brand through that angle, basically.
I'm interested, Brett, in the kind of culture of looking back into the past. That kind of, there is a longboard culture down here in Torquay, and I think that is actually one of the reasons why longboard surfing has become popular. Is that and Angela's probably right that there is a kind of an ease and a beauty about the surfing you do, but Do you think there's any kind of historical element to that people are looking back to the older style surfing?
Well, you know, like I'm not joking. 35 years ago, I took up longboarding. I got a Kim Thompson to shape me an 8'6". I've still got it in my garage. Most beautiful board. Still surf it now. It's 35 years old. And I went to Kim and I said, this was like 1981. I said, can you shape me a longboard? Kim looked at me a bit funny.
Yeah.
He shaped the most beautiful board that's timeless. And I used to paddle out, and guys it was the old story. That guy's getting a lot of waves. And I don't know whether I'd say that Torquay, I'm talking 6-8 years ago, there wasn't that many longboarders in town.
No.
And I used to paddle out and I'd be the furthest guy out. And I think people just woke up. For a long time, we thought, gee, they're dumbos. They haven't picked up on this yet. How good's this? And then in the last 5 to 8 years, I'd like $1 for every Malibu that's been sold, because I look at Torquay Point and I go, wow, there's 50 guys out. And 8 years ago, there would have been 10 Mals and 30, 40 shortboarders. So I don't know what the progression, how it all started, but someone ate the Wheaties or someone drank the monkey juice and it
Well, there's a trick, Brett. You just have to be there at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Because 5:30 is too late these days.
Well,
this is a question, Angela, that we've been asking people over the different interviews we've been doing. But do you think it's getting more crowded, or do you think it's just pretty much the same? I mean, you surf really crowded places, I know, Noosa and Byron. But down here, I'm really talking, is it getting more crowded down here?
100%.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Like, I'm not even local. I can't even claim that ever, right? And I've been here 15 years. And I remember when I first, moved down here with Ian, we did long distance for a while and, in our relationship, and moved down, and he was like, oh, I want to take you to this place. It's bloody, so sick. It's the best longboarding wave. And I'd never been the times I had been previous. And I was like, okay, cool. And then at the time there was other guys working his factory, like Andy Warhurst and Geordie Brown, so it was like, tools down, let's go for a surf at this longboarding place. And we turn up and there's no one out. So it was Posso's. It was pumping. And I'm like, what is this place? Are you kidding me? My mind just blew, because it was just absolute perfection and no one in the water. And this is only 15 years ago. And I would go there and I would hope I would see someone, because to me, it felt sharky. It's not. But because I was so used to surfing in clear water up north, that you can see, even though it's way more sharkier, you can see what's coming. I always had this I can't see what's around me and underneath. And I just wanted someone else in the water with me. So I'd always make sure I'd organise one other person, one of the boys in the factory, to surf with me, because there'd be times you turn up and there'd be no one out. That was crazy to me. I can't believe that was only, 15 years ago. Pumping.
And even
I'm
now,
a blow-in, and that happened. Yeah.
Well, you're very lucky to have surfed Posso's by yourself. The only time we can do it is when we have a comp there.
yeah, exactly.
True.
We haven't had a comp this year, so I haven't surfed there this year. Bothered. I'll just look everywhere else, because it's natural that you're going to expect these sort of crowds. We've got how many tens of thousands of new neighbours. Armstrong Creek have got their own board riders club. I've been here 17 years, I think we worked out. And I used to come down. I used to hitchhike down too, Brett, in the 70s. And so we probably passed each other, or you probably got the ride I wanted.
You were in front. There's always someone in front of me.
Yeah, maybe. But look, it seems to be, I wouldn't say tenfold, but every year the crowd is at least doubling. But it's just, I was saying to somebody a few nights ago at the Torquay.
Glenn?
Sorry?
Say that you've got to remember, going back 15, 20 years ago, there was no surf schools. So you're going to encourage them, which is good.
Yeah.
And so surf schools have made a big difference, and they're obviously doing well. Although etiquette is an issue, as we well know.
Big issue, yeah.
Big issue. But I'm just going to say one thing about, you raised before, about when did longboarding really get started? Well, you got to remember the Surfcoast Longboarders started it up back in the early 80s when longboarding started coming back into flow again. So the founding members with John Lane and just trying to think of the other guys. I think Barry, maybe.
I think Claw was in it way back, wasn't he?
Beg your pardon?
Wasn't Claw was part of the club?
Claw was a founding member, yeah. And who else was there? I was just trying to think. Lou, I can't think of Lou's surname at the moment. He was, he was certainly the president when I joined, before Laney and all the other guys. So Lou Nettleton, yeah.
Yeah.
So Lou, as in, I can't think of his son name.
Sean.
Sorry?
Sean?
Yeah,
Sean Nettleton, yes. So Lou was in charge when I joined, and John and other people. But yeah, so back in the 80s when Surfcoast Longboarders started up, sort of thing, longboarding was coming fashionable again. So we gone from shortboard back up to longboard, and it's just gone from there.
Yeah. Now,
I'll give it 2 other comments.
I remember the famous Vic Tantau. You know, like Vic was the most amazing character and surfer, and he was even, I think he was part of the Fred Pike.
Yes, he was. Yeah,
way back in the early days, and you know, there was Vic used to surf Torquay Point on his, his toothpick.
Yeah,
and then he progressed. He was one of the first guys that ever made a balsa board in Torquay and possibly in Australia.
Yeah.
And those boards now, if you're lucky enough to have one of those, and they are just gold. But he passed away about 10 or 15 years ago now.
You had Peter Troy with him too, Brett. You had Peter Troy and Vic.
Yeah, Peter Troy.
And there was also the guy from Torquay Surf Club.
China Gilbert.
China.
Remember China?
Gilbert. He was part of them.
You remember back in the days, Bud, when I used to do they got me doing the rowboats at the age of 14.
You
know what they did?
I remember that.
They tricked you on your first day you went out. They said, listen, you got blisters on your backside. So what we did was they said, listen, to avoid the blisters, put some water on the seat, start rowing, and everybody would row in unison, and there'd be 4 to 6 foot waves, and I'd row, and they'd say, look, pull your Speedos down to the ankles, because that'll stop you from getting blisters. And then what they didn't tell you was they did a quick U-turn and came back in, and we were right up on the beach, and you had no clothes on. That was the initiation. But China Gilbert used to go out in a rowboat, and I saw him in 6 to 10 foot Torquay Point in a rowboat. The way Gash, I'm sorry, mental block.
Greg Brown.
The way Greg does it today, China was doing it in a tin rowboat.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that would have been in the
it
early
was insane.
70s, wasn't it?
Sorry, mate?
In the late 60s, early 70s?
Yeah, it was. I reckon I was about 15 or 16 and saw him out there. It's etched in my brain. And
you're right.
The famous trombone player and all his mates were on the shore.
Owen Yateman.
Yeah, Owen Yateman. And there was all just a big gang, of incredible blokes back in those days that they started Torquay. They were the guys who started Torquay.
Yep. No, you're right.
Brett, while you're on one bit of a roll there, I'd love you to sort of reflect on watching people surf, and if you can remember, it doesn't have to be Torquay, but even a shortboard rider that you really like their style. Yep.
I can tell you, mate, the guy that used to inspire me the most, well, obviously Mark Richards was awesome the way he used to ride, but the guy who I really admired his surfing was Mark Skelton.
Yes.
I'm probably about 2 years younger than Mark, but I used to surf with him, and he used to be the Birdman. His arms used to come out like Mark Richards.
Yeah.
And remember one year I went to Indonesia, and we used to walk through the treks of to get to Bingen. Does anybody know Bingen?
Yeah.
And we went to racetracks one day, and I've still got the footage on old footage, and it was probably 4 to 6 foot, but the next day it was 8 to 10 foot, and racetracks was just 4 blokes out, lines to the horizon. And I surfed Bingen with my mate Gary Taylor, who's a local bloke, and it was 4 to 5 foot, and there was 3 of us out at Bingen. Today there'd be 50.
Yeah.
If it was like that. And the next day it was 6 to 8, and we couldn't get back there because the BMO wouldn't go down the track. And I remember bumping into Mark Skelton. He was off his chops celebrating. He got an 8 to 9 foot bingen with 2 or 3 guys out the next day.
Yeah.
And I didn't see him surf, but I know what he would have surfed like because I saw him surf in Torquay many times. Guys like Potts, Potsy? Does anyone remember Potts?
Yeah.
Talking Martin Potter.
Yeah.
I used to call him Potts. He lives in WA now. And his brother is...
Ian idolises Potts. All I hear about is Potts.
Yeah, Potts looked like he had curly hair, and he looked like Buzzy Kerbox, like from Hawaii. He had this incredible head of hair. And as a goofy, he was unbelievable. Mark Skelton was amazing. Freefie I used to surf with Freefie back in the days of the Winky Pop. And I never got a wave for like an hour, and Freef got 10. And
Kimbo was always good too. Kim Thompson.
But I was lucky to pinch a wave every now and again from the boys. But gee, they were my idols probably back in the day.
Yep, good on you. And Ange, I'm pretty interested. I know you've got a diverse background to draw from, but can you think of anyone that you'd really like watching their surfing?
Yeah, I loved, again, not by choice, but my dad used to love watching Morning of the Earth before we'd go surfing as a family. He'd always put that on. I remember the soundtrack very clearly. So I loved MP. Oh gosh, like
did you surf?
Also a lot of Lynchy. He always watched because he could. Yeah.
Did you surf with any of these people? Like did you surf with Michael?
No, I didn't. No. Even though they were up, because even at that stage, MP had stopped. So, but came across him up north, but he had stopped surfing at that stage. But oh God, there was people that I'd seen in the water. Truthfully, growing up, I actually had a real idolization for Rel's son. I came across her once because there was a relation between the Byron Bay Malibu Club and the Waikiki Club, and they used to go over there annually every year, and vice versa. They'd come over, so that was really cool. I remember seeing her, and I always looked to her in movies and things like that as a longboarder when I got into it. And then there was just local women, and it was really funny, and everyone always is so surprised with this. Growing up in Byron, no girls my age surf longboards. It was hilarious. It was older women, men, that when I started surfing longboard, I got so written off by a lot of the girls that I knew that surfed. They'd be like, oh, and then when I had the sponsorship, it was like, oh, hang on. Then obviously, because you're teenagers, it's like, oh, something's happening here. Like, oh, you're getting stuff out of this. So I was like, oh, I just enjoy it, but it was all a bonus. So I looked with a lot of the older women and men, Bob, I'd see out, my dad especially.
Yeah.
He got really heavily into longboarding, and I loved his style because he loved MP. So he used to like to, on his longboard, he still does now, he slides down the waves. He's a goofy footer though. Yeah. But he gets on the nose, hangs 10 and then slides the board down the wave. Yeah, nothing wrong with goofy footers. He made me surf less all the time. It was annoying, but yeah. So I guess those type of people, a few people, definitely.
I don't want you to give away, like secret spots, but this, I mean, both Brett and you could probably name a spot, or not even name it. Just what kind of waves do you like to surf? Do you like points or beach breaks? And is there a kind of spot that you can not give away that you could say roughly where it is that you'd like to go to?
And you go first, so if you get into trouble.
I've got so many.
Good. You can confuse us then.
Yeah, I've got so many. I'm just thinking to nail it, because I don't surf. I guess this is what my dad brought me up with. We never surfed one spot. We surfed all the spots depending on the wind. So it'd be Broken, Pass, Tallows. It was just like, with sometimes, and Wadigos, for example, it was kind of, that's how he surfed. He surfed everything, so we'd surf everywhere. We never had like one dominant spot. And I kind of do that here, I just try and surf everywhere. Wherever the best is, I just kind of try and go everywhere. I love Bells. I know I'll name that because that's pretty well known. And when I go home to Byron, I love surfing the Path and Broken, Yeah.
I don't think you've given away anything there. That's good. But you're obviously like
No, I think they're really obvious, aren't they, those three?
Yeah, no, that's
good.
Now, Brett, we know that you surf a spot. You don't have to say where it is, but we know
No.
about it. Where
Yeah.
have you got other places in Australia that you
Yeah.
can think of that you'd like to surf
Well,
or do surf?
That's really weird, like every memory I ever have is just this home break that I surf all the time. And I just wait for the tide. I wait for the right time. I never go out. I'm never first out in the morning because you always get the blokes, waking up, scratching their eyes, and 20 blokes out within the first 5 minutes. And I time myself wherever I go. I'm a bit methodical, and I think you have to be methodical today to try and find a quieter break. But I might leave Australia for a minute, but I've been going over to Indo every year for the last 10 years, and I just love Madawi. And it's not a really incredible wave. It can be scary because of the rocks, but I love Madawi, and I've been going there for now, I don't know, 10 years, and I've got to know all the local blokes. They are a really good bunch of people. They all want you to buy a T-shirt, but I take a bunch of T-shirts. I take a bunch of T-shirts over for them, and I try and sell my T-shirts to them.
Yeah.
But I end up giving them away. But if anyone surfed Madawi as a longboard, it's such a good wave. And now that we can get boards on some of the planes to get over there, because quite often we couldn't get boards on the plane because Jetstar won't take them. It's a real shame. We booked 2 trips to Bali this year. We couldn't go. So I hope to God it opens up next year.
Yeah.
Just take the pressure off our local breaks. And, my local break after yesterday, I went to Urban Surf for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And I absolutely loved it. And I rode my 9.3. And I fell off the first wave, got cleaned up on the second.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do this. This is too hard. But by the 3rd or 4th wave, I came in 1 hour session. I actually thought I'd been out for 3 hours. I was so buggered.
Yeah.
So good.
What do you think about urban surf, Ange? Do you
I love
surf
it. Yeah. I was lucky. It's so funny. I got Charlie won. He surfs in Torquay Board Riders, and he won like a ticket for the free session when it opened up before it opened. And he was hounding me for months. When's it opening, Mum? I was like, I don't know, mate. So I sent them an email. I got on their website, and it was like, opening soon. Become a member or sign up to this something, and you might win a ticket for something. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. If you get start, that'd be cool too. We ended up winning double test pilot tickets. So we ended up surfing it. Yeah, like before, like there was exclusive guys that surfed it before us, but it was like a public test pilot session. And everyone was like, oh, you got it because of South Coast. I'm like, no, we got it because I like filled out a survey or something it was. We ended up surfing it for 8 hours and surfing at all the different levels. And I was just like, this place is amazing. So
what was the slab like on a Mal? What was the bigger wave like? I only surfed intermediate.
Yeah. Okay. What was that one? What was the what wave?
What was it like on? I've only surfed intermediate. Yeah. I'm tempted to go on my 9.3 to the next level up. Will it work or what?
Yeah. Oh yeah, like that's what got me, because I took a whole range of boards. I didn't know what to expect, and then I surfed the log on the cruiser and intermediate and the point, whatever they're calling it. They kept telling us what they were. Okay, this is this wave, and I'd run in and change boards and things like that. The most fun I had was on a 9.1 like performer, one of Chis's performer. It was his personal board too. It was really funny. He's like, you got to take it. He was obsessed with it, and I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. And he's like, you're right, you'll love it. And I was like, yeah. I ended up going on that the most, and I ended up getting in beast mode, like barreled on that continuously. So that's now advanced. They had a little bit of beast at the end of advanced where you get tubed. Yeah, I highly recommend it, because for me, once I figured it out, you could take off the shoulder a bit and do a cutty back into it, then set yourself up and just wait for it to go over you. So
there's a second section. There's a second section, isn't there? Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. So as a longboarder, as opposed to taking off on that spot where you just have to drop or be right there and kind of try and pull in, I was taking off a little bit wider from everyone, fade turning in, setting myself up comfortably and getting barreled in the second section every time. It was sick. Highly recommend it. I would do it again. Definitely. I have
such a long way to go.
What's that?
It's such a long way to go.
Yeah.
I think we need one here by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
Now,
no,
this is going to sound a bit silly, but is there a manoeuvre that you would really, we ask all of the interviewees this question, if there was one manoeuvre that you absolutely wanted to master, what would it be? I might start with you, Brett.
Sorry, mate. You want to start with me?
Yep.
No, I think the best manoeuvre for me is just mastering the takeoff and getting that really beautiful bottom turn to come up with the speed. And then I still like doing my backhand. I surf backhand all my life, and that's why I surfed Urban Surf this week forehand, and it was like a new thing. Like I haven't surfed forehand for years, but doing a bottom turn backhand and getting that, pulling into the wave a little bit, into the bowl, back into the bowl, and then scooping it around and coming back up. There's no better feeling, and then you can dance. You know, that's when you do your dance after you master the bottom turn, and arms out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I love that moment when you bottom turn in, set yourself up, and then you know you're ready to get to the nose. Like it really gives you that push. Definitely.
It's a buzz.
I'd love to master like a hang 10 heels. That would be epic, like something Ben does. But
Heels.
yeah, I've always wanted to. I can do a 5, turn around, hang 10 5 with my heels. But I can't.
I'm surprised you can't do that now, Ange.
No, I can't. I try. I can't. Yeah, I can do a hang heels 5 only, but it's temperamental too. It's not good.
Yeah.
I must admit, one of our other interviewers, we asked the same, well, Glenn asked the question, and they said the same thing, Ange, and that was Emma.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
was it? Oh, classic.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's
I
trying.
should master that too. Maybe we should, do that together for a little bit. Classic. Love that.
Well, I was going to say, guys, I'm thinking about going to. I ride a 10-foot gashboard that was made for me about 18 months ago. It's the most beautiful board, and it's loose. But I'm honestly thinking about going to 11-foot and still surfing my home break, because I think you can surf anything. You just have to know how and when to take off and do it right. You just master your own board, and I've noticed boards are getting longer. Are you making longer boards, Ange?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't. I do all the other stuff. She's the one that does all the shaping and the glassing and everything. But all our boards are like, we've got a range of different models and stuff. But you know what the most popular is really that we sell is a 9694, always. It seems to be the go-to for people. But when Ian makes, that's like kind of our stock, we always have to make sure we have them in stock per se, because people come in looking for that size. But if Ian does customs, then he'll say to them, oh, look, this is probably better suited and things like that. But yeah, I don't know what it is, why people just seem to be going to the 96s and 94s. Interesting.
Yeah, I've seen some really nice mid-length boards Ian's been doing.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
The little mini slasher ones he's been doing. Yeah, he gives, this is funny. So that's a model, like it's a longboard, just downscaled, so we've got a slash model, and it was really funny. He did one day because something happened with the blank had a fault in it, so he did a mini one, but we didn't know what to call it. He's like, I just did the template of the slasher, how sick is that? And I'm like, you should do that as a model, like consistently. He's like, nah, won't sell. And he's like, no, I'm like, that will sell, because it looks to me like a kind of what I started on, like a Warren Corney. She did a lot of 8-footers and things like that. And before I got into longboarding, there was even like an 8-foot division in the longboarding comps, like back, don't know if you guys remember, but up north anyway, there was like Super 8s and things like that. And 8-footers were a part of the longboarding events. And I was saying to Chiz, that'd be really cool, like to do something like that. And he was like, oh yeah, whatever. So he did 2, and it's so funny. They're like our best sellers now. You can't make enough of them. Just really random. People just love them.
I know we're going to have to finish pretty soon, but there may be some other people that want to ask one question. But just to finish on maybe, I know that we've been through some sort of a horrible year, but summer's coming. I mean, we're in summer. Is there anything you're looking forward to, Brett? I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's not surfing related, but is there something you want to do over summer or into the future?
Well, probably first thing I'd love to do is kiss my son. I haven't seen him for a year because he's in Sydney and he hasn't been able to come down. And I want to take, I've already booked urban surf for 3 of us, so I can guarantee him waves when he arrives in about Christmas Day. We're going to go straight there. But can I have that question again?
Well, just I'm happy that's a good answer. That's enough. That's all we need. I mean,
I just want everyone to be happy down here because it's great to see the restaurants opening up. It's great to see all the businesses flourish. I think it's going to be a fantastic year for Torquay. All the shops are filling up. The shops that are closed because of COVID, there's a new spring in the step, and you watch. Retail is going to go nuts, and people who are prepared to put their balls on the line and go and become self-employed right now, I think they're the ones that are going to do really well, and the ones who are doing it right, like you, Ange. You know.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, like I can. Yeah, definitely. You're right. It's fun. You can see it. We already can't. It's bizarre. We can't fill the racks. It's crazy. The boards are selling before they get to the racks. They're selling when they're half glassed. It's unbelievable.
Is this something you want to do, Ange, too? Just sort of something personal, maybe not necessarily retail.
Yeah,
but...
similar to Brett, funny enough, actually, and I'm about to do it Sunday. I'm so excited. I haven't seen my family in over a year as well up in Byron, so we're going home Sunday, me and the kids, and I'm going to be staying with them as soon as the borders opened up and everything. I booked the flights, so I'm so excited. Just come up, give mum and dad a cuddle and my brother and things like that. So, yeah, super excited for doing that.
Back to basics.
Yeah.
Hey, Brett, can I ask a favour?
Sure.
Can you show us that beautiful board behind you?
Yeah. Anytime. I've been lucky enough to buy 3 Pat Morgan keel fins in the last 2 weeks, and I've been waiting 25 years to get them. And I had 3 phone calls out of the blue. This one came from Newcastle, up in, and it arrived today at Rip Curl, and all the boys at Rip Curl were absolutely frothing. They all standing around looking at it. And I walked in and took it away, and I shattered their day. I just shattered it.
It is in pretty good nick by the looks of it.
You know, from a distance, how I can show you this, but this is the tail.
Wow.
Oh, amazing.
So cool.
Wait for it.
Oh, what? That's so rad.
Now this is if I can show you the deck.
Oh, Kilo.
This is the line. It's sort of.
That's beautiful.
It's the most beautiful sport I've ever come across. But
it's nice.
Put it down carefully, please.
Yeah.
On that tail especially. You're like, oh my gosh.
Christmas will be over.
I think that's Glenn. I think Glenn. I think as the Torquay board riders, the Torquay Longboarders Club, you should organise a show and shine for all your boys and all their boards. Bring them out, and over summer it's a perfect time because everyone wants to have a chat and show their boards off.
Yeah.
Well,
there were a few. We used to have board swap meets and things, and I actually saw a board that I had when I was 15 turned up, and it was from Yellingham. An old rounded pin. The guy wanted $1,000 for it, and I said, "Well, I only paid 50 when I bought it." But it was quite a shock because it was quite unique. It was, but I don't know why we don't. Patagonia used to run a few board swaps and things, and it's always.
We were going to start doing that actually.
Absolutely.
We were going to start doing it too, but then COVID happened. We're going to do a couple of them this year.
Right.
It didn't matter. Just come board swap everyone, bring your boards. We're going to,
Sure.
COVID.
You don't need a permit to do it. You
No,
can do
you
it on
don't.
social media. We all go to a park, get it out there 2 weeks before, and you just turn up with a cup of coffee in your hand and have a chat.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Don't structure it. And you know, I'd love to do it if someone from the club wanted to. I'd help them.
Yep.
Late January.
There you go, bud.
That could be a possibility there, I'd say, Brett. Can I just say that before we get cut off, Ted, how much time? I don't know we've got, Ted, but Glenn, you want to do the wrap-up and before we get cut off? And I'd like to say thank you, Ange. We got you. And Brett, I appreciate you both being here, and bad luck we missed out on Barry, but over to you, Glenn. What's the spill at the end?
Well, I'm just going to second that, Bud. Thank you guys for coming along. It's really nice to hear your stories, and yeah, of course, Barry Sutherland would have been nice to have along too. I'm sure he's got quite a few stories, and so we much appreciate how you've been helping the club out, and look forward to the association in the future. And thanks again. See you in the soup. Have a great summer.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much, everyone. That was awesome.
Yeah,
Hey, Bud,
bye.
start to get some of my vouchers away, will you?
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, give them away.
Thanks,
Give them away.
guys.
Thanks,
Yeah, nice
Glenn.
to meet you, Ange. Nice to meet you, Ted.
Yeah,
Good to
nice
see
to
you.
meet you, Brett.
Great.
I know where you
nice
are
to see
now, Brett.
Hey, Bud,
Yeah,
we're
we'll see
having
you
a
in the
swim
morning.
tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, down at Cozy Corner, 9 o'clock. Come on. Good for you.
Hey, Ted, yeah.
I
I'll
reckon
be
we
in
could.
Ballarat. I'm going
Oh,
to Ballarat with Surfing Vic to do stand-up paddleboarding. So,
Ah.
Good luck.
no, it's a bit.
All right, guys.
Hey, guys.
Cheerio.
thanks a
See you
lot,
Thank you so
guys.
much, everyone.
Bye.
That was awesome.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank you.